Year 11s, we are now looking at the phosphorus cycle. Once again, our main focus is going to be on how the microorganisms are actually involved in this particular cycle. Now, the alternative or the different part here from the nitrogen and carbon cycle with the phosphorus cycle is that the main source of phosphorus is not the atmosphere. It's actually the soil, or specifically the rocks. What happens with the phosphorus cycle is that as the weather, specifically the rain and water, actually come down from the either from the sky or in the case of some running rivers, it just runs along, it actually erodes the rocks away. Phosphorus is quite soluble in water and it forms phosphate ions in that water. So we actually get these phosphate groups that actually come into our waterways, either directly into the soil or into lakes and rivers and streams. And it's once it's as this phosphate, this water-soluble phosphate, that it's able to enter into our living tissues, particularly plants. And then once again, the cycle becomes that the plants get eaten by animals, animals get eaten by other animals, eventually both the plants and animals die, and the decomposers come along to break that down. The decomposers in this case, though, have two potential pathways. They might recycle those used up phosphorus, or that used up phosphorus back into phosphates, or they actually might deposit it as sediment. And so we then begin the cycle all over again. So we'll just quickly draw that up and I'll illustrate exactly where these microorganisms come into place. So these two potential final pathways. Either it re-enters the plants as phosphate, or it goes into the mineral phosphorus into sedimentary soil. What this then does is it actually allows that cycle to occur. Once again, exactly the same problem can occur here with the nitrogen cycle as with the phosphorus cycle. Because it's so key to plants, it's one of these macronutrients, so it's one of these nutrients that's required in reasonably large volumes by living organisms. Plants actually need that to grow. The more they have, the quicker they can grow. So farmers, because they're reasonably clever people, actually add this in the form of phosphate fertilizers to their crops so that they can grow more rapidly. This then means that they can increase profits and all of those sorts of things. The problem is that it affects the microorganisms in the water systems. Once again, same process. Runoff from these crops or from these fields gets into the waterways and increases the amount of algae or increases the amount of organisms that are going to use that dissolved oxygen in the waterway, so that it's going to reduce the amount of oxygen available for other living creatures. So it's a significant problem. I'll just zoom in on the screen here so you can see in more detail what's happening. The phosphorus in rocks comes down to erosion by water, which releases the phosphorus as phosphate. That then enters into plants, which then the animals then take in the phosphate. The decomposers will recycle And so that will either go back in as phosphate, or it will enter back into the sedimentary or into the rocks and go through the whole cycle once again. So this is the basic process of phosphorus, and our concern is, once again, how are humans manipulating this? You'll need to come up with some examples yourself, specific examples, not necessarily different from the ones I've come up with, but specific, so that you can answer those questions in a test.